to your right hand. Now to your left.
Well done, especially with the left sweep press texture. Woo! Yeah, well done.
Hello and welcome to Rudimentality Podcast numero
Quattro.
with my friend and yours, Daniel Jones. Dan, how you doing today?
I'm doing really good.
Great. Thanks for coming in. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Those of you that are not entirely familiar with Dan Jones, he has been doing drum corps literally his whole life in one capacity or another. Been involved with drum corps, I should say. He marched cymbals in Music City Mystique. He is a former member of the Colts Drum and Bugle Corps cymbal line.
Yep.
And Minnesota Brass, insert section here. Did I leave anything out?
No, that's basically it for right now.
Yeah, for right now. And so those organizations, and he's just a really awesome dude and good friend of mine. My travel buddy. We always ride together to brass gigs and stuff. So
such good memories.
So many miles on the road together. So today we're just going to talk about a little bit of everything. Obviously, we don't get too many cymbal players around here, especially legitimate ones. So I want to pick Dan's brain on cymbals and what makes them unique and why people like myself should not attempt to teach anybody how to play cymbals because I'm only ruining them for people like Dan when he gets to them. We're going to talk about some of our experiences and especially Dan's experiences with Minnesota Brass. We're going to talk about Dan coming up on a decade of participation in drum corps as a performer. Wow. And I thought I was getting old.
It's a long time.
And of course talk about his experience at MCM and then do a little ranting about DCI. So Dan, why don't you tell me about how you got started in drum corps, how you found out about it, and what makes you do it for so damn long?
My parents, my dad started, I think it was in 1982. He started in Minnesota Brass as a trumpet player right after my parents were married, I believe. If my parents are going to listen to this, they might want to fact check that.
Cool.
But, yeah, my dad started for the first 2 years, and then my mom got pregnant with my older sister, Caitlin. And then he took that summer off, and so I think that was in 86 he took that summer off, and then he kept on going, and he started back up in 87, and then I was born in September of 1988, and how did that go? He came back just in time for me to be born from DCA, because DCA was always on Labor Day weekend. So.
Oh my god, that's crazy.
So, luckily I was a late birth. But going on from there, I just hung around the drum corps. My mom started becoming on support staff, and like right after my sister was born, it's like, well, my husband is going to do this, and I feel like my kids he's really strong for this activity, so obviously I want my kids to do it because it's obviously something that's amazing. My mom fell in love with it right away too. Mm-hmm. So she started being on support staff, and then she kept on going, and I first started being active in the drum corps by marching in the parades, like doing banner carrying or carrying the American flag or something like that. I absolutely fell in love with drumming when I was like around 5 or 6. And those were the years of Troy Hummerding and Nick Moreno. Nick Moreno is actually like one of my number one idols when it comes to drumming. He basically took me aside. He gave me my first drum pad and first pair of sticks, and then I just started drumming from there. A lot of the older crowd from Minnesota Brass knows me as the kid who would follow the drum line around with a pad and sticks.
And I understand you had a specially made harness to hold
the
pad.
I would take one of the old tenor harnesses that were just a piece of junk in the back of the trailer for Minnesota Brass, steal that harness and slam my pad, absolutely devastate the edges and everything, but I would just play the crap out of it all day. Every single rehearsal I was there.
That's awesome. And actually, there's a really cool photo we're going to post on the show page of Dan as a young lad with a bunch of other young dudes that have since gone on to March DCI, and they're all hanging out with Nick Marino, who has this amazing lion's mane kind of hair situation going on. And it's just all of them lined up on a park bench. It was like a little mini, drumming camp thing that Nick did with them. It's really great. image. It'll take you back, people. So, okay, so you started hacking around. You were always the kid. You were just hanging around watching. So drum corps got infused into you. When was the first year that you actually were a performing member?
2004, which was moon dancing, I believe, for Minnesota Brass. And that first year, I auditioned for the drum line, of course, but I was like, I think they won drums that year, so I'm pretty sure they didn't need a 14 or 15-year-old kid bumming around. But my dad actually taught me how to play trumpet that year. I was like, I really want to be a part of this drum corps. I think it's time for me to start joining up, kind of like a family tradition type of thing.
Right.
And my dad is one of the lead soloists nowadays that actually marches on the show. So, yeah, my dad's a great trumpet player, and it was a little frustrating sometimes learning to play an instrument with him, but at the same time, I thought he was one of my best teachers musically.
Right.
Taught me that. That was in 2004. That was a special year. If anyone has seen the 2004 show, we had this giant, indoor tarp on the field that was an orange moon, and I was on the team that pulled it out.
Okay.
A team of 8 or 9 or 10 people. It was heaviest thing I've had to deal with, and one of the most ridiculous things I've ever had to deal with in the marching arts. But
innovation on the field. That box 6 right there, Dad. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
So, we'll definitely try and find a video that get that posted on the show page so people can check that out. That is a pretty amazing sight. It harkens back to even in the late 80s when groups like Vanguard and other places just had huge props and stuff, or I think
VOA.
Yeah, or Velvet Nights. It's weird how that's gone full circle.
Full circle now.
And it's we need I think I referenced this in the podcast with Tom Reimer. We talk about this group from WGI last year who had the guy on stilts with the giant scythe. And he's supposed to be this demon or represent death or something, and it's just whoa, what is happening right now? I mean, I love those extremes though. It keeps it interesting and gives us things to talk about on here. So, okay, so 2004 you played trumpet, and did you play horn for a couple of years? Or
in 2005 I decided I tried out for the drum line again, but I didn't make it. And I decided, that's the year that we switched from sopranos and bugles and stuff like that to Dynasty. 2005 was our first Dynasty year, and that meant I would have had, or I thought I had to relearn all the fingerings for trumpet. And I was like, no, absolutely not. I'm not going to relearn notes. I barely learned the notes on the page for my last year's show. I'm not going to try and relearn a scale. Mm-hmm. So I just decided to switch to, I'll just do tuba.
Nice.
Because mellophone, all those parts are way too hard for me, especially for an inexperienced horn player. And then baritone's just freaking heavy.
Right.
And I was 16, nope, I'm just gonna go with tuba.
At least I can put this on my shoulder.
And that was the summer of donuts, just playing whole notes practically the entire time.
That's perfect.
Because anytime we had quarter notes, gut.
Tubas, can you just play an F?
There. Dennis, can you take the one below the scale? All right, sounds good. All right,
that's great. Yeah. So, 05 you played tuba, and then
2006 was my first drumline season.
First drumline season.
I did both winter. That was my first winter drumline season, and then I also started with Minnesota Brass as a cymbal player.
06 winter, you did MBI indoor?
No, that was Henry Sibley.
Henry Sibley High School.
Under the direction of Tyson Smith and Mike Brown.
Mike Brown teaching, which, hello, full circle, guys. That's how we're doing it.
But Mike Brown was one of my first snare techs as a professional, I guess you could call it that, drumline, competing drumline. And then that summer I did the cymbal line with Missy Mullen, which it was the last of a really great era of cymbal players. She learned from Rob Vole, and she also learned with Lindsay Kaiser. They were huge.
Oh my God, I remember Lindsay Kaiser,
Yeah. Just complete badasses when it came to cymbal playing. And when I didn't make snare that year, I just turned to this section and was whoa, you guys have always caught my attention since you guys are always in the front, and I always respect what you do. Mm-hmm. I was a pretty big fan of Vanguard cymbal line at the time as well, so just to start that. And I had absolutely no experience, and I pretty much taught myself how to flip under the tutelage of Missy. But I would go home and just practice flips until eventually got pretty good at it.
So, Dan, let's start talking about a little bit about cymbal technique. I hear a lot when we're on the field about what is it like having to reload and then like explode or something. I don't know.
Well,
is that different from the technique you used when you first started?
Yeah, it definitely is. The year that I marched with cymbals was the last year of that era, because that was also like a lot of people moved on. Like there's the Tyson Smith and Scott Wachnick or BAMs, and a lot of people from that drum line pretty much retired.
Yeah.
And that was '07 with Ariel Bach and Cora Morris and all these other people. That was the new generation of brass, and that's when the new generation of techniques started too. And then talking about technique, especially release and reloads, in terms of cymbal life, it's pretty new. It's like it's in its toddler's phase, and it's still being developed heavily. But that started, I guess, one good drumline that probably pioneered it the most would be Music City Mystique from 2009. And that was the year Asian Dave, or David Von Baron.
Yes, affectionately known as Asian Dave in the Minnesota brass community, and really
everywhere
I
else.
would imagine, yeah, in life.
He's been all over the place. He marched in Madison Scouts. He marched in what was that California drumline?
Freelancers,
yeah,
Yeah.
in 2008.
Yeah.
This guy has literally moved from state to state to state to state,
Just absorbing knowledge.
just to teach and be a part of cymbal lines or drum corps. That guy is practically more drumline, drum corps than I am. Actually, definitely is. But but yeah, he came back the next year for the summer of 2009, and that's when you got to see a lot of release and reloads in the Minnesota brass technique. But then, as soon as Music City Mystique, there's actually a video on YouTube. It was like, I think it had like 20,000 hits or 100,000 hits, which for a drumline video at the time was really big, especially just a cymbal line video. And it's just basically their prelims lot. Just the full show.
They're like at an angle?
At an angle.
Yes.
Because they're doing full ensemble. They're right behind the quads.
Yeah.
And you just see them doing all their cymbal visuals. And it's just prelims lot. And it's like one of my favorite videos to show kids when I'm trying to get them to be inspired to be a cymbal player. And
I know exactly the video you're talking about. We're definitely going to post that on the page, so you guys can check that out.
But that's what inspired me to learn release and reloads.
And how exactly does that work? Like, what's the theory behind it? I mean, granted, this is not a video podcast, but just give me kind of like an overview of how that.
Well, basically, the way that I heard that it was discovered, when I was marching Music City Mystique, I heard from my friend Julian Jones. In the year previous, they would just pretty much play around with the cymbals, push down on the cymbal so it would rotate up, and then push back, and then all of a sudden it was just by accident that the cymbal came out of their fingers and whipped around their wrist, and there's like, whoa! And they just kept on experimenting with it from then on, just over and over again, and just there became like techniques and little tricks, which everything started like as a little like kind of like a cocktail joke, just like, oh, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna flip the cymbal around our wrist, and then we're gonna catch it in our hand.
Oh yeah, like on the edge with your fingers, yeah.
Or they're just like little flips where it's just like it bounces back from hand to hand, like the front of your hand and the back of your hand, which Mystique and brass, they call it crepes. I don't exactly know why, but even though I did it several times.
It's probably better that way.
Yeah, it just adds to the mystery.
So essentially it's like a series of actions where you have one action and then you have like the inverse of that action to get back to a set position, kind of.
Right. That was like in its elementary phase, but now it's just developed into so much more. I mean, I would watch, this past summer, I'd watch Minnesota Brass's cymbal line while we were on the field or waiting, and they would just go through a visual. It's like, I feel like I've marched cymbals for 5 seasons, and I can't do that stuff.
Right. it's just gone to a new level.
It's just evolved so much, and like you even see like the WGI memes that say, "Oh, you can do release and reloads too." It's like, oh, it's not such a big deal anymore. It's as basic as normal flips are. Most organizations, I mean, not every organization can, or every symbol line can do them well, at least in my opinion. But the ones that can, they're starting to invent more and more stuff, so it's just coming out of the box, and it's becoming more implemented, which I absolutely love. Because symbol lines are dying out in DCI, as most people know, and it's because they're considered either part flag line, but they couldn't toss flags, and and they're not part of the drum line, so it's just not as impressive, and all their musical parts are just covered in the front, which, I mean, I agree with at some point.
Like in theory, yeah.
It works in theory, but it's like now that there are more and more symbol techniques, it's not just the same stuff.
Yeah.
And it started in the WGI scene, and it's vastly spreading and very quickly spreading throughout the DCI, and a lot of instructors, a lot of people that have marched in indoor groups are responsible for that, and that's really awesome.
Mm-hmm. So. Absolutely, man. Well, I know it's one of the things that keeps me entertained when I'm watching DCI groups, and it's always awesome when you you're at a regional or something, you happen across a symbol line. It's like, oh, let's see what's up, and then you wait for the Viper to happen. Yeah. You know it's coming. Somebody's getting chopped. Like, watch your legs.
Yeah. Whenever I'm watching DCI with one of my friends, they'll like ask me. It's like, oh, did you see this part? Did you see this color guard part? It's like, no, there was a symbol line in that drum corps. My eyes were glued.
Right. I'm going to have to go to another show in order to get the full picture next time. Yeah, exactly. Well, let's talk a little bit about your experience in DCI. So when did you first march with Colts?
Colts, my first season was in 2008. I went to my whole dream was to become a snare player, like when I was a kid. So I went there. That was I think that was the second corps that I'd ever auditioned at, besides Minnesota Brass. And I went into the snare room. That was the year of the legendary Jeff Queen, and I pretty much spent a couple hours in there, and I got to do my individual audition, and they're like, okay, these people are not going to make it into the snare line. And they're like, that year for 2008, they had just come off a really big win for Colts, and 2007, they got 10th place, so a lot of people just went flocking there. Mm-hmm. There were over 100 kids in the snare room alone. It was pretty tough competition. But I wasn't even near ready, so I either decided I'm either going to try bass, which I've only done once, or I can try cymbals, which I've done a full season, and I decided to go to the cymbals. And for the longest time, for the first 2 months, I was devastated, like so afraid that I wasn't going to be able to make it because their technique is completely different. They do flip downs and all these other.
Are they primarily vertically oriented?
Yeah,
like a vertical port position or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, they're position one, at least when we call it that. Okay. When I marched, position one was just your cymbals are vertical and in front of your eyes and or in front of your face the entire time. So it's like. And they had different crashing techniques, just very different. My style, when I learned in 2006 with brass, was very Vanguard-esque. Very much the port crash or like slamming your cymbals. But then I spent the first night in the cymbal room and saw that they're almost more orchestral and like using the cymbals, not just like forcing the cymbals.
But more like an ellipses motion almost.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You get a more pure sound.
I mean, their main crash, or at least when I marched, was called the butterfly crash. So it was just like a VA motion. And a lot of people know about that, but it's very flowy. And at first I wasn't a fan of it. It's like, it's just kind of too flowy. I can't come up with a better word than that.
Right.
It's just like, okay, I get it, I guess. And then I came back for my second month, and I was just totally bummed out the entire weekend because I thought I was just getting annihilated in the auditions by this one guy, and he was just talking about, he started coming up with nicknames, even though he had never marched there. It's like, oh man, I'll be this, and you'll be this, and he's talking to vets. It's like, my name will be this, but you can be this, and when we get on tour, it's like, why?
That's bad vibes.
But I mean, I was really young at the time, and it was my first junior corps experience. It's like, okay, well, I'm totally screwed. And then my instructor talked to me that day. And I was also being approached by Joel Matuzak, on the other hand, when I would go back home to Minnesota.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I'd come back and I'd be like, I can do brass maybe, or I can do Colts, but I don't necessarily know. And Joel was even saying, like, well, can you tell me, like, now,
right,
like, as soon as possible? And he's pressuring me, so I had to pressure my instructor, Ben Gervais at Colts. It's like, well, I can't wait until I get the letter. I need to know now so I can tell him in a couple of days if I'm going to be there or not. And he said, no, man, you made it. Like, you've been very impressive. Your growth was very huge compared to what I saw you last month. It's like, what?
Awesome.
I went to my mom, who came with me to that audition camp. It's like, we need to get some Colts stuff because I'm going to be in the Colts.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that.
It was just like that.
Pretty much.
Yeah. That's awesome. So how was that first summer for you? Like your first full DCI summer?
It was truly. I mean, I've been around drum corps for a long time. I saw my sister march junior corps with the Bluecoats for 3 seasons, so we would go to rehearsals. So I had a pretty decent idea of what it's like from personal experiences from my sister and just from watching. But they beat the crap out of you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just don't know about it until you've either done something incredibly similar to it, like the military,
right,
or drum corps,
right.
And it's just, they beat the crap out of you, but you gain such, like, at the time at least, you're almost bonded by blood. It's practically by blood. If it's the closest thing to it. Like, they're my brothers and sisters, pretty much. I mean, a lot of them I hated. I mean, you have an older brother or sister or something.
Yeah, I have a younger brother and sister.
Like,
yeah.
Oh, you're just a douche. But you're my family,
but
so I respect you.
That's right. Blood, sugar, and water. And in this case, it's appropriate because we're talking red team.
Yeah.
So.
But that year, I made 2 amazing friends that I marched with for one more season. Teen Pham, who's actually the current cymbal tech at Colts right now for the past 2 or 3 seasons. And then Megan Frankham was my section leader. And she's probably one of the most, how do you put it, the most consistent cymbal player I've ever seen. Which to non-cymbal players, that doesn't really mean a whole lot, but like, she's this little 5'7" girl, she was 5'4.5". I remember that because I would always make fun of her because she's short, and she's like, I'm 5'4.5". It's like, okay, fine,
not bad.
You're still really short,
Right?
And no, she's one of the most consistent players I've ever seen, and she's really good at emoting too. She's just graduated from some art school in Illinois, I think.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, I marched with her and Teen in 2008 and 2009, and then Teen the next year, for my age out, became my tech. And yeah, if they called up me one day and just said, I need $1,000 or I need something from you, it's like, where, when?
Right.
I definitely, those were my first 2 lifelong friends, I feel like. I mean, we don't talk as much as we used to, obviously, compared to junior corps, and we're states away. One's in Arizona, one's in Illinois, but like, yeah, we still...
Just tight like that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Tight like a tiger. That's awesome, man. So, let's see. At this point, when did you age out again? It's
2010 was my final season with Colts.
So, in the interim, you also did Minnesota Brass Indoor, right?
I was there for the inauguration season of Minnesota Brass Indoor, and I played
Ignition.
Yes, Ignition with the yellow suits, yellow jumpsuits, big black floor with only blue Ignition written in the top left corner.
That is such an incredible moment in Minnesota history. And for everybody that was a part of that program, I'm not here to hate, but those uniforms with the nastiest thing. I mean. And I'll take that back. I've seen one other uniform that was on a group that I taught that looked as bad, arguably worse, because it was a more vibrant shade. But I'm going to find a video of Ignition and get it up there for you. It's
so great.
It's a beautiful, like, we should totally watch it, actually, before you leave. Because it's such a beautiful representation of, like, where WGI was at in this weird transitional phase. Like, things were just, like, with the electronics coming into their own, and just, like, thematic programming, and the way, you know, they're trying to basically turn it into theater with really high-level drumming going on top of it.
And then you see brass in the background, in the way back at the end of that line, of that evolutionary line, doing basically just ramming notes and running around the floor. But like body work was very minimal. I mean,
you get like throw a plie in every, you know.
We had the worst body work in our ballad, and I mean, Joel Matuzak would always make fun of that. It's like, okay, we're going to add body, and someone who marched in 2008 or knew of 2008 is like, oh, we're going to do this, the ignition body work for the ballad, and then you'd start doing it, everyone would start laughing. Oh, the worst body work I've ever seen.
Yep. Well, but you know what? That's how you learn, and that's why Joel is a freaking Hall of Famer now.
Yeah.
Those of you that haven't heard, Joel Matuzak was inducted into the Drum Corps Hall of Fame. World Drum Corps Hall of Fame? I can't remember the exact...
Well, it's the Drum Corps Associates World Hall of Fame.
There it is. Thank you, Dan. And he was... they had the ceremony for that while we were out at DCA finals in Annapolis, Maryland this past Labor Day weekend. And that was a really cool thing, and especially when you can go back and look at all the... I'm not going to say missteps, divergent paths along the way to that point. It just makes it all that much cooler that he was honored like that. So Ignition, and then the next year was what? Synchronicity? That was a cool show. I had the little turntable-y things.
Yeah, like Lazy Susans or whatever.
Yeah.
Pretty much large Lazy Susans. And that was actually my first year ever playing snare drum, besides playing with Henry Sibley in high school. But like, that was my first... snare drum experience with Minnesota Brass in any of the organizations, and it was really fun. Paul Baker was my section leader.
P-Bix.
Yep, and then who was right on the other side of me? I was in the center 3 that year, and it was JJ or Justin Rassier.
Or Jupp, as I know him. Jupp, if you're listening. That's your name. Don't ever forget it.
But, some really cool dudes that I got to drum with. Mike Finney, that was his first year, too.
Oh, yeah. Wow. And I remember the year before that I saw Mike Finney with Coon Rapids when he was still in high school, and that was... Wait, was he still in high school?
He was still marching Coon Rapids because...
He did both then?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Or, actually, I now remember, like, there's a whole lot of drama around that. Like, either if you could do both or you can't. It was part of MPA's rules and regulations, which a lot of WGI organizations and other statewide drumline organizations are like, if you can do if you can do high school, then do your high school group instead of doing your independent world.
I remember when that was such a huge problem when we first got Minnesota Brass as an indoor group, and then later on TCAI, Twin Cities Area Independent.
Well, they actually started the very first Brass's first year too. I was part of TCAI in 2007, and we just couldn't get it off the ground, and we basically made it to the second camp of January.
Okay.
And then we basically, we didn't fail. It's just they had to go back in and think inwardly and just start afresh.
Really build a foundation for the organization. Yeah, and unfortunately, no longer with us. And then now, since then, River City Rhythm has come into existence. Right. And there was like a stretch of 4 or 5 years where it was just people getting real nasty because everyone is fighting for bodies with these new independent groups, and they want the best talent in the state. And the high school kids want to do it, and you want them to be able to, but you also don't want to destroy your own program by sending your best kids out there.
Yeah.
So that was. Thank God that's not as nearly as big of an issue now, because there's so much more exposure for those groups, and we've had a lot of changes as far as like high school programs folding over the last couple of years, and that's opened up a lot of new recruiting opportunities. So I think overall it's a healthier circuit in Minnesota.
Yeah, it is. And also, I feel like Brass and TCAI and RCR have really inspired a lot of high schools to get more motivated in their drumming careers, and just like a lot more parents are helping out. I mean, maybe I'm absolutely wrong about this. I've been out of the teaching scene for a couple of years now, but I feel like kids are getting way better than when I was around. I mean, you'd find your random individuals that were going to go march junior corps, and you knew that. But
and they had their heart set on it and everything.
Yeah,
yeah.
And it was just, but for that, it was just very few and far between.
Yeah.
It seemed like to me. I mean, I'm just speaking from spectators' view, just because I didn't march WGI or MPA. I didn't know about what WGI actually was until I went in 2008. Actually,
really?
I saw like videos of 2007. It's like, oh, Rhythm-X is pretty cool. Oh, Mystique's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 07. Like, saw a YouTube video or their innovative percussion site. It's like, okay, that's pretty cool. 2008, mind was blown.
Yeah.
Absolutely blown from what I was seeing all these high school kids do. Like Mission Viejo was like one of my favorite schools to watch in a lot.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. It's
I'm
insane. I know, and especially now, I'm so old and having gone back and done 2 summers of drum corps, and like the expectations placed on us, hands-wise, I feel like I can hang for the most part, but sometimes the body movement stuff, like I just get in my own head, and I feel like such an old man. Like I have to go into my study with my mahogany chair or my mahogany desk and my leather chair and just study and break it down, like tying each movement to the beat and like doing it really slowly and once, because I just can't. And then I teach something to a high school kid. I'm like, I have this idea. Let's do this. Like give them 3 moves, and they just do it. And then I'm like, oh, well, I feel stupid. Like maybe I should have higher expectations for myself.
Oh no, it is really sad. It's getting a lot harder, and brass. And like, if you look at the WGI circuit, or if you look at DCI now, it's just body movement is getting so.
The level changes down to the knees, up from the knees, laying on the ground, jumping over each other.
One of my favorite seasons from one of my favorite shows from last year WGI. I didn't see WGI live. I saw it all via YouTube or whatever. Mystique's show. I mean, I'm an ex-Mystique person, so I feel like I have a little bit of a bias, but like their entire show was body work.
Right.
Like their entire show was
and
body
the front
work.
ensemble had a ton of like built-in body work and like gestures and stuff.
I feel like when I would talk to my friend and yours, Mike Olson, he would really delve into the history, and like we would even delve. We had Mystique History Night prelims of WGI in 2010. And we just learn how far. Basically, it's just like a bunch of old Mystique people like patting themselves on the back, almost, but it's like a little bit more professional than that. And we get to learn our own history, and like their pit has always been the most amazing pit since they started in like '96. It's just, and they've been really developed. I feel like they've been innovators in the whole program, and just like especially pit performance, just body work and everything, and just like how your face should look when you play this C natural. It's like, all right.
Okay. Yeah.
They really delve into that crap.
And isn't that something that is kind of not necessarily unique to Mystique, but definitely one of the things that sets them apart is the way they bring people back from the past and how involved alumni are with the organization.
I think you could count right now on one hand how many instructors are with that organization that have not marched before. Shane Waltney, who is the arranger right now and drill writer, he started, God, I don't even know, but he marched for years, and then when he was going to age out, the year of his age out, they started asking him to write because he was writing way beyond who the arranger was at the time. And it's like, well, I want you to write this snare break. And that organization is all about involvement of the members of the section. It's not just staff yelling at you. It's like, do this, I want you to do this. It's more like they go home. Like WGI isn't like DCI where it's like you're on tour every single day and you're told what to do.
Right.
It's like you rehearse for the weekend, you go home for the week, you do your job or whatever. Or for me, it was just sitting around my apartment. And you just come up with ideas with your fellow section mates. And they're really, I feel like Mystique's is really, like, the blood and soul is really from the members. Like, the director, obviously, he started it, and a lot of those guys, who's the director of Innovative Percussion right now? I can't even think of his name. Eric Johnson, that's his name. isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Eric Johnson works at Innovative and was
he started
formerly works at the Cavaliers. May even still work at the Cavaliers.
No, his last year was in 2010. I think.
2010. Okay.
But he started Mystique with Don Click, and then he started Innovative Percussion like out of a garage.
That's insane.
And but ever since then, like Josh Nelson marched, who's the director of Music City Mystique right now. He marched, and then he just became staff member of the bass section, which was the section that he was in, and then he just kept on moving up. And they really promote from within. Mm-hmm. We have like 4 or 5 guys that aren't really a part of the organization or didn't march with them, but they've been there for so long that they know what they're talking about.
Right.
Which is why they've placed 4th 3 or 4 times in their history.
That's so insane.
Yeah. And they haven't placed below that ever. So.
Dude, next level right there. Okay, so let's talk about. I want to know a couple of faves of Dan Jones. Favorite cymbal line, all time, and it could be a specific year or it could just be a group.
Right. That's actually a really tough question. Like a lot of people will always stray to like the Vanguard type technique, and it's really like 2008 was one of my favorite years to watch their cymbal line. I feel like there's, well, I don't know. It's really hard to determine because there are so many cymbal lines that have actually developed their own techniques and their own styles now, and a lot of them are so. And since there are actually so few of them now, it's like it's hard to pick a favorite because like they are really good, but in their own completely different way. And this group is really good. And 2008 Vanguard was one of my favorite cymbal lines, even though we competed as a cymbal line. But like the way those guys like treat cymbal playing and the way that they train for it, honestly, like I've talked to a couple of guys like while I marched, and they said, yeah, we need to be ready to be around each other in the summer or be around each other starting in February. Like they get contracted in November, December, and then and one of the big things is like, well, are you going to be in the California area? Because they basically treat their cymbal line, or at least they used to treat their cymbal line like WGI. Mm-hmm. They would get together, lift weights, work out, and play cymbals. And they started that like near the middle or end of February. Mm-hmm. And then they kept on going until it was like around late March or late April is when they would have their early move-ins before the early drumline move-ins before the rest of the move-ins.
Jeez. That's insane.
And just like their attitude of that season was just completely badass. It's just, we know what we're doing. Like, I know I talked to one of the guys, and actually the snare section leader, or not the section leader, but he marched with me in Mystique, and he marched Vanguard for 2 or 3 seasons. He saw a cymbal player, he got his hand ripped open by his cymbal strap because they were just using the strap so much that they got chafed, and just like it's a hot summer day, and like his hand was literally bleeding all the way down his arm, and he didn't even notice, or I'm sure he noticed it, but he was just, you know.
I hope so, otherwise that dude isn't just a badass, but he's got some problems.
But yeah, but he just goes through the rep. He went through like the entire rehearsal day just, you know, bleeding from the arm. It's just like,
it's insane.
They're like special forces. It's just
they're the special forces. They're the Green Berets.
The Green Berets DCI cymbal lines.
That's just awesome. How about for WGI? You got a favorite WGI cymbal line?
I had to say that the whole reason why I auditioned at Mystique is because I saw them in 2008. It's not my favorite cymbal line ever, but that year at least. But every year, just their attitude and the way that they perform, and it's not like, it's almost like arrogance, but like professional arrogance.
Yeah.
They don't look down on people, but like
everybody just kind of knows. Like there's an aura around those guys, and they're always coming up with such crazy things to do, like the mantra. The year you marched, you guys did everything, spinning with cymbals and tossing them.
Yeah, on sticks. Yeah.
Before that, they did the bungees. They were, I believe,
in
one of the first ones to do that. The freak show.
Yeah, it was the Music City traveling sideshow.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah, that was crazy. And then Mantra, they did they did that flip where they had the cymbal vertical in the palm of their hand.
Yeah, they would hold it
balancing
and
it.
They would flip it into the hand, and it was completely out of strap, like the strap wasn't even on the wrist. We really started doing that in 2010. And
oh, really?
Yeah. We actually had that visual. It sucks because they changed the DVDs in 2008 from like having multicam and high cam. In 2010, that was the year that they changed it. So like, I really wanted to see that visual because we worked so hard on it. There's so many drop cymbals, so many chipped wooden floors, and every time we drop
the rug over that.
Drop a cymbal in a gymnasium on a floor that we're trying to preserve for 4 or 5 months. And not have an instructor look at you and scream at you.
Right.
It's the most noticeable thing in the world. You drop a cymbal on a hard wooden floor. I'll get that. That was mine.
And then a bass drummer trips on the gouge that you created. It's the size of his own foot. Oh God, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you actually started working on that in 2010.
Yeah, we actually have it.
Is it in the show?
It's in the show.
Crazy.
The only place that you can see it actually is one of our live videos. That year we only had 2 live videos just because I think we were just really busy with the way that we did our makeup. Our warm-ups were actually pretty short compared to past Music City Mystique years. But yeah, you only get to see 2 videos of that, and you get to see the actual pulling the hand out of the strap, which, I mean, I'm making it sound like it was a big deal because at the time, like, no one had ever really done that before. Right. So, but nowadays, like, everyone's doing it. I even saw Pioneer's cymbal line do it this past summer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So everyone's really doing it now. But it's like at the time, it was a really big deal and very frustrating process of like. Have you ever had leather cymbal straps like on your wrist, like, and they're usually kind of smooth, but like as soon as you start sweating in them and they start drying, any cymbal player of either WGI or DCI knows that it's the stickiest crap in the world. It's like stickier than
it's just leather. Yeah, it just gets
leather
damp and
it just basically sticks to your wrist. Like I feel like
so that's why like MBI cymbal line, they talc up all the time.
They use either baby powder or that's what we would use all the time is no, actually that year we used lotion all the time. I had always joked with my friends at Mystique to say, I feel like we should just take all of our cymbal straps and throw it in like a tub of lotion to just marinate. So it's like, so we don't have to keep on re-lotioning up. It's just smooth as like butter.
Yeah.
That'd be.
Although tying them would be kind of a bitch.
I feel like they would break a lot more too.
Probably, yeah.
But
that's nice. Have you ever seen the nylon like clear straps where you like pull them through and they have like almost like a little washer kind of thing underneath, like a little plug?
Like clear straps?
Yeah, It's I'm gonna have to look it up. I was talking with someone about it the other day, but they're I don't know. The idea is that they're made out of nylon. Maybe they're not clear. Maybe they have some coloration to them, but they don't break as often, nearly as often, because it's made out of like nylon material as opposed to leather.
Well, nylon. Actually, I use nylon all the time with Colts because they use Sabian, and I'm pretty sure if Zildjian does make a nylon strap, none of their marching groups ever use them because most people are not a fan of nylon.
Okay.
I was a huge fan because at least the first 2 years that I marched with Colts, those nylon straps were practically unbreakable. Even when they're shredding and like it looked like there's only a thread left, I could get through like a 4-hour block with just a thread of nylon as opposed to leather, which you pull them and they just fly apart.
Yeah, exactly.
But actually, in 2010, Sabian came out with these Sabian concert nylon straps, but they shipped them with the cymbals that you would order with the drum corps. So we got all these weak-ass nylon straps, and I was a promoter of nylon. Like, I would argue with Megan Frankham or teens, like, you need to use nylon. It's like, no, it shreds your hands. Like, but they never break, and your hands get calloused anyways.
Right.
But that year, I had to stop. I was like, I'm taking back what I said about nylon straps because they're awful.
Yep.
They're just absolutely they would break all the time. And then I had to switch to leather straps in 2010. And there's one day, it was actually for the St. Peter show. We were performing in Gustavus. It's an unjudged show. And I feel like any of the cymbal players that I have as friends, I've told this story to. But there's one day I broke 6 straps from one cymbal in one block. And there's one of the times I was replacing the leather strap of my right-hand cymbal. It was after the fifth time, or the fourth time it had broken. I was replacing it. I was starting to tie it up, and I pulled the leather strap through the hole in the middle of the cymbal, and it just snapped. Like the two prongs just snapped. It was like I took my strap and my pad, slammed down my cymbal on the ground, and threw it as hard as I could across the field on the sideline. And people were just like looking at me, like, "What's up with that? Did you just like kill a bee or something?" You were so furious right there. I was so mad.
Yeah.
Just cursing and just throwing.
And you still had 2 more to go through that day.
Yeah, it was probably one of, like, even though I was in Minnesota, I was so happy to be home. That was the worst day ever, for rehearsals at least.
Yeah, well, and then we had, I can't remember which show it was when, I think, was it? It couldn't have been, maybe it was St. Peter, I'm not sure, this past summer with Minnesota Brass, and Tori from the cymbal line, within like the first 15 seconds of the show, his strap broke, and he ended up carrying his cymbal the entire time. Felt so bad for that dude, and then he like ended up dropping it again, and then having to pick it back up. It's just
or it was like Cora had to pick it up, ran to the sideline, and threw it.
Oh yeah, and like chuck it out of the way. Yeah,
threw it behind the back sideline.
That is, I mean, it sucks when you lose a stick, but
that happened to me.
Half of your instrument just fell off. You know?
Like that happened to me either the second or third show of my season in 2009 with the Colts, and it was probably one of the worst experiences I've ever had. Like, the drum line got off the field, and like I was obviously cymballess because it was just first probably 15 or 20 seconds it broke, my strap broke, and it just fell right out of my hand. It was like, I don't know what to do, so I just marched the show. I just aired everything, having the worst absolute time of my life. And like we got together as a drum line, we talked, and even my caption head was like, "What happened? What happened?" I got so angry that I threw it off my hand, but decided to march the rest of my show.
I'm doing
it broke.
I'm doing a half day today. I don't know if you got my email, but I wasn't really planning on doing this show today. You worked me too hard this morning, so screw you.
But as soon as we got into the cymbal circle, I just like started bawling. I was like, that was the worst experience I've ever had in my life, and I love to perform, and I didn't get to do that show.
Speaking of loving to perform, when did you develop the ear bite? Was it early in life, or did it come later? Is that a snare drum thing, or did that start when you were playing cymbals? Because I know last year, this past summer, you and I have been, it was like a constant battle to see who could overhype more. And I feel like the days that I would win the overhype battle, I also won the playing like shit award. So I feel like you still overall won for the summer. But,
I don't know, I've always loved to perform. Like, even when I started doing my high school marching band, I was in Centennial High School, like right next door to like Blaine and Anoka, but we had no indoor drum line. So it was literally like fall marching band. We march around our neighborhood for homecoming, and that's it. And we do football games. But even then, I just loved to do it. I loved watching even the U of M drum line, which isn't spectacularly known for their performance.
Right.
But
they're too busy high-stepping all day. Jeez. I saw them at the Minnesota Brass performed right before a U of M marching band rehearsal this past year at TCF Bank Stadium, which is also where the DCI Minnesota Regional is held. Power Regional, excuse me, is held for DCI the last couple of years. And we were picking up our stuff and grabbing water bottles and whatnot, and I saw them doing their like warm-up routine, and they're high-stepping it, and I just thought, oh man, I'm so glad that I don't have to do college marching band anymore. Like, I remember it being fun, but I don't think so anymore. I think I'm good.
It's like, nope,
nope, that's too much. Like, and especially, it's not like they're wearing slings. I mean, they have like regular harnesses, and they're making these dudes with drums.
Well, luckily the drummers never had to high step. I was in that drum line for one season.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Wisconsin's marching band, I know for sure, does high stepping. We would always make fun of them.
Guys, that's Wisconsin. That's Wisconsin. Come on now.
No one likes
Those of you from Wisconsin, yeah, we're hating.
Yeah,
so
they suck.
Deal with it. Nathan Zacharias, if you're listening, hope you're having fun at Baldwin today. Baldwin, I can't remember the other group. Baldwin, a bunch of Minnesota dudes are teaching out there now. But Nathan, if you're listening, Wisconsin sucks. Moving on. So yeah, ear bites are awesome, and I think we've pretty much covered everything that we had planned on covering. I had something else I wanted to ask you, and I can't for the life of me remember what it is. So, worst case scenario, folks, we will take a break, and then I will record that after and plug it back in.
Yeah.
But, oh, I remember what it was. Favorite instructor that you've ever had on a horn or in the drum line or playing, so anything.
That's really rough just because I've had...
Or somebody that you felt like you learned the most from.
I guess that's a really hard question, like, especially since I've had so many instructors in front of me. I've had so many from different instruments, but my dad, like, I feel like it's like a 4-way tie or a 3-way tie. My dad was who taught me about music. Like, I never listened to pop radio or anything. Like, whenever he would drive me and my sister to daycare or school or whatever, we'd always be listening to, like, 70s, like Rush, 70s or 80s metal, and just, I was into Kansas before most people were into Kansas because of Stupid Guitar Hero. Or, like, well, I'd just talk about all these songs in elementary school, and, like, none of these kids, like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm listening to Backstreet Boys. Like,
and then Guitar Hero comes out, and it's like, bro, did you get the new Kansas CD? You mean the one that came out 30 years ago, you jerk?
My dad is definitely a huge influence in my musical, actually pretty much in my whole life, but like since practically 90% of my life is drum corps, then I would say, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and you know what? We will try and find... There was a really awesome article that was written up in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune that featured Dan and Tom Jones, and it talked a little bit about the stuff that we talked about today. It was really touching and heartfelt, and especially when they were doing the photo for it. The rest, it was like after a parade, and the rest of the snare line had a lot of fun giving Dan shit as he was trying to pose and look either professional or like pretend
really
like he was
stupid.
drumming, and it was like just so awkward. He tried doing a high mom at one point, it just kind of froze in this awkward angle. He had this chicken wing thing going on with his left arm.
I'm just really glad the only picture was just of my dad and me smiling.
Yeah, thankfully they used the most vanilla one that they took that day. I remembered what I was going to ask you, and that is WGI 2013
Winner?
Percussion Independent World Top 3. Who you got this year? Me and Michael Brown put ours in that first podcast, and I think what I'm going to do is everybody that I talk to, I'm going to try and get their predictions, and then we're going to get like a big board set up on the website, and then see who's the closest, and then whoever wins gets a T-shirt or something. I don't know.
Nice. I'd have to say, just because it's slightly because of my bias, and I think they're probably the most badass drumline that walks out there. But like Music City Mystique, I'd say win, because I felt like they were going to win this past year, but it turns out that RCC was just way too clean of a drum line.
Yeah, they're really good.
They're just... And I feel like they're going to come back for vengeance, you know? It's like, that should have been our medal, so we're going to walk back into first place.
Plus, they had some lighting issues at finals, I think, where if you check that show out, there's a bunch of, like, almost balloon-looking things.
Like it's almost like
things.
yard toys.
Yeah.
Light up yard toys, but, like, they're structured. They have a rigid skeletal structure.
Right. Yeah,
Like,
so
and
there's
look
different
like pylons
shapes
and stuff. And their show is called New Tribe, which I'm pretty sure everyone who's listening would know about this.
Yeah.
But it was based off of, like, the New Tribe from Avatar.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, they didn't dress it, they didn't put on blue makeup, but, like, everything from...
Had that kind of vibe to it.
Yeah. But, yeah, that drum line, I feel like, is going to get number one. I'd have to say either RCC or... I feel like Rhythm X is going to make it back into the top 3 somewhere. So I'd say Rhythm X makes third, RCC second.
Cool. This is awesome, because so far all 3 of us have had
Different lineups.
different lineups. Yeah, I have.
I feel like Paul, like not to hate on anyone that I know that's a staff member.
Right.
Cough, Asian Dave.
But yeah, Asian Dave, or who we spoke of earlier, is teching Pulse Open,
and he helps out with Pulse World Symbol Line.
Yeah.
Too. I feel like Pulse had some really good drumming, but their ideas are just...
That's exactly what I said!
It's almost like high school. It's like it's almost high school, old high school concepts. It's not like very theatrical like high school WGI is now.
They're
It's
going
just-
for the, like, last year they went, and I talked about this on the other podcast, but they go for the heartstring kind of thing, and it's like coming and going, and or whatever it was,
Yeah.
here and there, or what, and it
So many
just,
dirty jokes.
yeah. Oh, we're trying not to put the explicit tag on, Dan. No, don't suck me down that black hole of fun and hilarity. But yeah, I didn't dig the show. You know who I did dig? Chino Hills last year. They had the Rickroll in the middle of the show, and like
Oh, I heard about that.
neon and black and white. It was fun, and I want to see Pulse World especially do that. I actually put as my dark horse in the number 3 slot. I had Pulse Open getting promoted again.
Oh yeah, that's right. I heard about that.
Because I think they're so awesome. The show they had last year, that obsessive compulsive show concept it was amazing. I'm gonna keep saying it, folks. We may make it a regular thing. Every podcast I talk about how awesome POW is.
There can't be that much talent in California.
Can there? Dude,
Ugh.
it never ends. And now, this is apropos. Ian Grom and John Mapes have been announced as new drum staff for Blue Stars and
Really?
Arrangers. I don't think, or whatever, the caption head / arranger. I'll look up the actual press release, and more importantly, if you're listening, why don't you go look up the press release? Because I have like 12 videos I need to find and link on the show page for this episode. But yeah, so they're going to Blue Stars now, and
Nice.
Richard Saucedo is also at Blue Stars now. So a horn arranger dude. So
Okay.
it's going to be a really interesting summer to see what they do, because I mean they're so innovative in the indoor circuit, and it's really, I'm excited to see what they do with a drumline and DCI.
I mean, their drumline was smooth
And
this
frontline.
summer. Props to Joe Yeager.
Joe Yagbom, I know you're listening, son. Come at me.
I saw him. I visited both of his lots, and I wish he could have marched those 3 lots at finals week. Oh, it was such a heartbreak. I never even got to see Blue Star show last year because I was planning on watching them at finals.
Right.
And then Crossman went ahead and
Didn't work out. So yeah, Joe Yagbom, love you even though you're 13, son. And anyways, those of you that aren't sure who we're talking about, Joe Yeager was on snare line for Blue Stars the last 3 years. Was it more than that?
It was 2.
You know what, Joe, I'm going to have you on the podcast and let you talk about it. How about that, buddy? So, awesome dude, and he is going to be marching at Minnesota Brass Indoor. Ooh, who recently declared that they're going into world-class competition.
Yeah, it's...
Dan, let's talk about that. It's pretty exciting, man.
Well, you're on the admin staff there too, right?
Yeah, I haven't actually announced this, but I am going to be helping out, basically, well... I think I'm going to be helping out. I've talked to the director, Nick Marino, and basically because of my schedule and everything, I will be just anyone he needs me to phone call or email. I'll help take care of that kind of stuff and
There's so
make it
much-
down when I can.
You have to do all the crap that no one else wants to do.
No one else wants to do it, and I don't care because I just I just want to get on the bus to Dayton and come hang out and be a part of the scene. I'm super excited that they're taking the leap. Especially from their humble beginnings, the Ignition year.
Right.
It's crazy. And last year was a huge leap up in quality, taking second in open class, in Indy Open, behind George Mason. And it's going to be crazy. There's like 150 people signed up for auditions right now.
Really?
Or like interested on the Facebook groups. Which, who knows what that'll actually translate to, but...
I feel like Mike Olson might have liked that page.
Right.
He's in Texas.
I mean,
so.
technically I did, but... yeah.
But
someday they'll have all-age indoor, like they have for Color Guard.
But yeah, Independent World for Minnesota, I feel like is a huge step. I know it's been like practically a lifelong or career-long dream for Nick Marino and Joel Matuzak and all the people that instruct. Like, we really need to bring up the talent so we can bring an independent world organization to WGI from Minnesota for the first time. And congratulations to Nick Marino.
Yeah, man.
He actually just called me a week or 2 ago to be.
I saw your name.
Yeah,
Yeah, do a
I
little
did.
symbol action on there.
Yeah, helping out with Ariel Bach, who's been the instructor there since 2011.
And was this past summer as well.
Yep. But she's been the winner. She's been the winner Simultech since 2000. 12, I think. Yeah, last season was her first season, and she's really brought those kids. I feel like she's a really good instructor. She has a lot to say. And I'm just there so like I can get back into teaching, and also we're rehearsing a lot more.
Yeah.
We're rehearsing one more day. We're rehearsing Sundays now, so it's like just to give the instructors a little bit of a break, just have fresh eyes, practically almost like. I think her and I, we still have yet to talk about this, but we're probably going to organize one day. I'll show up this day, you show up this day, you show up this day, because I can't make it Sunday or I can't make Friday. Just so there are always fresh eyes, and I feel like I have a lot to bring to that organization. I'm really excited, especially from the list of auditionees for at least the Symbol line. Very excited about this next winter season to get started. I feel like it's going to be
dope. That's what it's going to be. I can't wait. I'm really excited to see, and I know they're doing they have been working on the show concept. I do not know what it is. I wish I did, and I would totally spoil it. But that's probably why I haven't been informed yet. But yeah, I'm really excited to be a part of the organization and just do whatever I can to help out in whatever limited capacity I have available. And it just is really important to me to see that organization succeed and help really just drag this entire state up into another echelon of competition and just excellence, and hopefully get way more kids excited about playing some diddles, because that's what we need. Dan Jones, I love you. Thank you for coming in today. I miss you. We need to get back on tour soon. And don't tell my wife, but I'm planning to march next year. So
she's in the next room.
I know. I realize the door
podcasts.
is very thin, but hopefully she didn't catch that.
Oh, that's so awesome.
So that's what's up with that. And Dan Jones will be embarking on his 10th season of drum corps greatness in 2013. Dan Jones, thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Thanks, man.
All right. And as always, you can find us at rudimentality.com. Like us on the fan page at facebook.com/rudimentality. If you have a question or a topic idea or somebody that you think we should interview, and especially if you know them personally or are that person, that always helps. Hit us up via email, rudimentality@gmail.com. Upcoming interviews, we've got Nick Taco Edwards is going to be on the podcast. We're going to do a Skype session with him. He's also another dude that has been marching since the dawn of time.
Him and I are actually celebrating our 10th anniversary.
He's also
marching.
10th?
Yep.
And he started about the same age.
Point.
Yeah, he's just, these little babies are growing up so fast. And he's formerly of the Madison Scouts and TCAI and Chops Inc. and Minnesota Brass now, and a million other places. The dude just marches nonstop. MBI Indoor. So he's going to be on the podcast. And then, I think I mentioned this before, but Harrison Lang, my good friend who graduated from the St. Cloud State Percussion Studio a couple years ago, has been living in Nashville, Tennessee, making a living as a gigging drummer and bass player. And so we're going to get him on. I'm recording that podcast on Monday. Let me see what day that actually is. The 8th of October. And that'll come out in another week or two. So just stay posted. I'm going to keep doing my daily meditation podcast. I'll have one of those ready for you shortly. Recorded after I get Dan on his way here. And yeah, just keep looking for features, keep hyping the site, share with your friends. The more the merrier, people. Let's get this show on the road. So, as always, keep on drumming. Check you next time.